Welcome to the webinar, How to Integrate Your SQL Server Data with FatDB. I'm Justin Weiler. I'm the CTO of FatCloud, and I'm going to show you today how easy it is to integrate your SQL Server data and utilize FatCloud to do some queries and whatnot. So the screen that you're looking at right now is our Management Studio. And the great thing about our Management Studio is that you can manage all your environments and groups and clusters from within a single tool. And unlike a lot of other ad hoc pieces of technology that you have to paste together, here you get a one-stop shop for managing everything that FatDB has to offer. So FatDB is not just a NoSQL database, but it also includes a integrated work queue and an integrated file management system, and most importantly, it's an app server. So you can take your WCF services and host them in your groups and in your environments, and you can manage all of that from a single console. And what this means to you as a organization is that when you want to add scale or change your mission, you can do it super quickly through this tool. You can add and remove servers from particular groups, which will instantly give you scale. You can also reconfigure your environment if your business needs change. So it's a great tool to have when you want to get a holistic view of your cloud and manage all your individual assets, whether it be data, files, or processing. So what I'm going to show you right now is how easy it is to hook into a SQL Server database and import that data into a new NoSQL database. So first thing I want to do is show you some data that we've basically selected for this little demo. The data that you're looking at right now comes from the AdventureWorks database. We pared it down to just the product table and removed some columns that were just noise, and selected a few columns for you to see how the process actually works. It's about 600 rows in this table, so it's pretty lightweight. But it serves as a good example of what you would do as a developer to get this data into your FatDB database. So let's go back and we'll begin the process. So I'm going to select my data group right here. I can see already that there's this little icon right here, which is the word count, work queue, then there's a file store. There's no data stores in there yet, but we're going to add one. There's also 6 servers that I have added to this data group. And if I were to look at the data group properties, basically what I would like is a redundancy factor of 2. And here's some quorum reads and writes. FatDB is an eventually consistent database with strong consistency and relies on quorum reads and writes as its default, with a lot of other strategies that are available to you. So we've set it up for redundancy factor of 2, meaning that there are 3 shards with 2 mirrors per. Now, I'm going to go over here and say I would like a new data store. So I'm going to choose NoSQL database, although there's other options as far as your data storage models. Right now, we just need a NoSQL database. I'm going to provide it with a connection string so that we can communicate with SQL. I am going to name the data store product. I'm going to go ahead and create. Now, I have the definition page for the product NoSQL database. Now, I could use it right now and populate data into the product database if I just wanted a naked NoSQL database. But what I'm going to do is specify the mappings between the product NoSQL database and the product table that we just saw in the SQL Management Studio. So I'm going to go ahead and create a data mapping. I'm going to say go ahead and hook into the product table. I am going to provide the primary key, and in releases that are being tested right now, it's going to be actually a single button push, and it'll automatically import your table for you, so it'll be that much quicker. But this is very much ORM-like functionality that will allow you to not only create mappings, but create DTOs that you can consume directly from your code, which is very cool. And I'll show you how that is accomplished in one moment. So I'm going to add some fields here, and almost done. Okay, we are entering in the last field, and let's go ahead and create that mapping. Now, if you'll see here that I specified the primary key and the fact that my only index field right now is my product key, but I could choose other fields that I wanted to be indexed. But let's go ahead and create the mapping. So there you go. Now, if I wanted to actually consume this in my client code as a DTO, I could easily export this DTO, and it will create the C# class that you can consume. It's very cool. Now, I have no data in my table as of yet, but let's click Import from SQL Table and see what happens. I just imported all my records from that SQL table into this database. And if I were to go over here and then hit Inspect Data, you can see that I have all of the data now in the database, and I can go ahead and edit, modify, whatever. The Inspect Table is an easy way for you to do some spot checking on your data. So now I created a little data application to show us SQL data and FatDB data side by side, so we can kind of see the interactions going on. And I'm going to bring that up and sort of show you both panes now. Now, one thing before we segue, I want to point out that, remember, when we set up the number of servers into our data group and specified the redundancy, we effectively set up the sharding factors and the mirroring factors. And right now, the data is split up into 3 different buckets with a mirror factor of 2. So just by doing this, you've gained reliability, redundancy, and availability. So that's pretty cool. So let me show you the data application. On the left-hand side, you have SQL Server data. And on the right-hand side, we're going to hit refresh. And there you go. Now you see the FatDB data. Now, how is this accomplished through code? Let me show you real quick what that would look like, what that refresh button actually did. So here's the FatDB grid refresh. It's event handler, and it's as simple as setting up a connection, FatDB connection, specifying that you'd like to create a client based on the product DTO that I previously exported. And if you want to check that out, you can see what that DTO looks like. Pretty basic stuff. And then we're selecting the records by index. And I specified our TOC index, and that I would like 1,000 records per page, and that's it. Basically, I submit the request, and I get the response, do a little sorting, do a little saving, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all good stuff. Now, let's go back to the data app 2. So let's say now that I'm pointing to, I have client code, and it's pointing to my NoSQL database rather than my SQL database for, speed and all the goodness that NoSQL brings. Let's say I go ahead and I change some data to be we'll say red. Now I can go ahead and I can update the FatDB data, which it's very simple. It's another just a few lines of code, very similar to the code that I showed you previously. And if I go ahead and hit refresh on my SQL Server database, you can see that the record is not in there yet. All I have to do is go back to the product definition and export to SQL table if I wish to do that. So, and there you go. So now I have the record exported into my SQL Server. I can keep both FatDB and SQL Server up to date manually. Now, I know a lot of you might say, well, how about if I wanted to do it automatically, if I didn't want to worry about updating like that? Well, no problem. There's a way of setting up read through and write back through our NoSQL databases and caches that will allow the data to automatically remain in sync, which is really awesome. But if you didn't want that automation, you can still do it manually, and that is what I'm showing you now. So let's go back to the application. We'll hit refresh, and there you go. There's that red item that we just changed. Now, I'd also like to point out the query functionality that we have. I just hit query here, and I got a record set of 10 items, and this was a link query. Now, I do the same thing for FatDB, and I get the exact same record set. Now, the awesome thing about this is that this is a distributed link query that goes to FatDB, and the code looks like, let's find the query. So bear with me. This is it, okay? Now, if we scroll up the screen a little bit here, there's the SQL version. Look familiar? It's identical to the FatDB query except for the provider. And the syntax is very similar. We set up a link to SQL data context, and here we set up a FatDB connection and make a queryable factory, and that's it. So if you have existing link queries that depend on SQL Server, you can easily migrate those to FatDB, and that is super powerful stuff, because now you've broken beyond the bounds of SQL Server in its performance and record limitations, and you've added reliability, you've added scalability, and when your data expands beyond your servers, all you have to do is add scale. And that is super easy. I'll show you how to do that in some upcoming webinars here, and we will do that through the Management Studio, and it's as simple as drag and drop. So thank you for joining me, and the next webinar will be about using FatDB as a cache and doing some of that automated read-through and write-back functionality that I was talking about.